Copious.
What up, perps? Kid Copious. Back in the bunker. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. We're repping America, the center, common sense. And soon the 4th of July. Yeah. It'll be time to say bye-bye, kitty. Va-boom. So, yeah, we'll kick this off like we normally do. You know, talking about the title of the episode, which is You Depart. That's a reference to this. A cue card that Biden was seen holding. You know, I'm sure cue cards for presidents is nothing new. You know, they have like a little schedule out in front of them so that they can figure out what to do, you know. But for him, it's a really bad look, you know. He's going to ask certain people certain questions, and they've already got their pre-approved answers ready to go. You know, he's being handled. He's not leading. He's not a leader. He is what he's always been, a second fiddle senator. And, yeah, he's just, you know, basically, you know, just trying to drag America into his agenda, into the far left's agenda. And that's what we see. But as we've also seen, the far right's going to get what they want to some degree. It's a real shit show out there right now. I think this week has, at least for me, sort of proven why I'm purple. I'm not red or blue. I have, you know, no representation. Nobody's trying to satisfy the center. And hopefully that ends up being both of their downfalls. So before we start with the happy times, we got to go to the sad times. You know, one of my football heroes, Saragusa, died at 55. Early indications are some sort of event with the heart. You know, people were performing CPR on him, but unfortunately he died. You know, he was a big part of the Ravens' 2000 defense. And that's, you know, where I fell in love with the Ravens was, you know, through their appearance on Hard Knocks. I believe it was the first ever Hard Knocks on HBO. You know, and he was a real colorful character. Funny dude. He's, you know, going to be missed. So, happy times, I guess, here. The DNC forced to slash prices for photo with Kamala Harris after failing to sell enough tickets. Yeah, that's... They tried to get $15,000 for tickets with photo included. And it's already down to $5,000 now. But, yeah, you're going to pay $5,000 to get a picture with what could be considered the most useless vice president ever. Maybe the most useful, whatever. I mean, you know, she is a super whore. I mean, if you think about it, lots of people have tried to sleep their way to the top. And I mean, you know, she's gotten pretty far, you know, and I don't even think she's good looking. I don't know if she ever was, you know. But, you know, part of the problem is when you have 3 or 4 pollsters showing the lowest numbers for the president of the United States, that's indicative of a president who's in a lot of trouble, at least to where he has stood historically. Yeah, it's a failure all the way around. And even if not all the blame for the shitty times we're in right now can be laid on Biden's doorstep, it's the attitudes behind it, where he seems to be more concerned with transgendered athletes and I don't know what else, ice cream, than the problems of the country. And nobody is stepping up and trying to take responsibility for that. Nobody's trying to take responsibility to lead this country, to put out a positive note. It's just all been spin and lies to try to make him look good at our expense. That's what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing any real effort at all to correct any of the problems we have right now. You know? I mean, you look at things like this, Mayorkas, you know, the dude that's supposed to be running the border and Homeland Security and all that. For the first time ever, our policy explicitly states that a non-citizen's unlawful presence in the United States will not by itself be a basis for the initiation of enforcement action. So if you're in the country illegally, we're not going to charge you with that. We're just going to allow that. I mean, again, we are in a worldwide crisis right now. And these fuckwads seem to think that making illegal immigrants legal is the number one thing to do. That's where the importance is, to let in more and more illegal immigrants. Where are they going to work? Where are they going to live? How are they going to afford anything? They're not. They're not. That's the bottom line. They're not. They're going to come here and they're going to do whatever they have to do to survive. And that's not how our immigration policy should be set up. Hey, welcome in. Just try to survive. Another troubling sign in a democratically controlled state like California, Farmer John's. Yeah, I work around that thing. Smells like hell. It's an abattoir. They kill pigs there, make hot dogs. Yummy hot dogs. But they're leaving. They're leaving. And people, oh, fuck that corporation. They're a big corporation. Fuck them. Yeah, but they're in the neighborhood of 2,000 jobs. Gone. What are we going to do? Are we just going to be a tourist destination with a whole bunch of fucking warehouses? Because a lot of stuff flows through us. And as we're going to see pretty soon, California has a 40% responsibility for inflation in this country. That's the way I see it. We'll see more of that later, though. Another great failure of California. Affordable housing in California now routinely tops $1 million per apartment to build. This is regulations. This is environmental regulations. This is red tape. This is corruption. And it's right in front of our face. We've seen it right here. No relief for this. And high parking requirements. The fact that they want to make it affordable housing dumps a whole bunch of regulations onto it. Does that make any sense? I mean, for you people out there who are going to vote for Newsom and you're going to vote Democrat again here in California, does that make sense that your policies, your governor's policies, your Senate, your House, all of the people who have been running California for decades now are Democrats? And what have they done? Nothing. They've done nothing to try to lower that cost. How is it going to be affordable housing at $1 million an apartment? Not an apartment building, not a house. Okay? An apartment. Maybe, a bathroom, a living room with a kitchen and a bedroom. That's $1 million. You could build a whole house for $1 million. It's ridiculous. Some bad news coming out of Europe as we're starting to see, they use about 70% of their electricity comes from nuclear power. And unfortunately, they're starting to have some issues that need to be addressed. But the real reason I bring this up is because they like to talk about the hotter climate. They need to throw that in at every single opportunity. Because again, the supposed man-made climate crisis is a number one priority. Not people going broke. Okay. Part of the reason why they're having a problem is there hasn't been fresh investment into nuclear power. And this is where the government plays a part in oil prices, energy production, and things like that. When they signal certain things, when they say things like, we are going to end fossil fuels. Well, what does that do for investments? Who wants to invest in something that's going to be phased out? And that's the same thing. Here in California, we are going to have blackouts over the summer. I will not be able to keep my AC on every day through the summer. Guaranteed. I may even go an entire week where I don't get an AC. Okay? I work outside. I'm going to come home. And what? I don't get an AC because lobbyists. Because instead of putting the public's needs first, they put the little individual people who are going to give money. There's no way to run anything. Another place where we saw not any way to run things was Minnesota. They decided that they were going to be cool and hip and defund the police. Well, they got sued. They're not producing, they do not, not providing enough police officers as laid out in the Constitution of that state. Something that's supposed to be like 1.7 officers per 1,000 residents, and they fell below that. And you wonder why we have rampant crime right now. And we have rampant crime. You could spin it however you want, but the way I always spin it is, when people aren't charged and when charges are reduced, it makes your stats look good. So I wanted to bring this one up because this is an interesting one. Okay, Nick Adams says gas prices would be under $2 a gallon if Joe Biden hadn't canceled the Keystone Pipeline. So this is kind of like a educational moment here. There are two ways of looking at this. First of all, Keystone would not be online right now, so it would not be sending any crude for us to refine. Okay? But on the flippity flip side of that, when you cancel that project, you're signaling to people, hey, don't invest in this. Don't invest in energy production or oil production because we're going to phase it out. We're going to block it. We're going to hamper it. So as you can see, even though you could argue Keystone has no effect on gas prices right now, the cancellation of Keystone indeed actually does play a role in that signaling to those companies. That's just the way it is. Okay, it's just the way it is. A good example of how things work, look at the fact that a few years ago, Baby Yoda stuff was everywhere. Right? Because it was a hot thing. The series Mandalorian had just come out. Gargu, or whatever his name is, was the most popular thing. It was all over the place. But now, demand has waned, and you don't see it everywhere. That's the same thing that happens when you say we're going to phase out fossil fuels. They're not going to produce as many. It's not going to be everywhere. Because the companies are taking a risk that they're going to produce oil that they won't be able to ship or sell or whatever it is. That's how it works. So this was one. I just ran across this and I was just like, okay, cool. It's not political. We may finally know why Bacardi 151 was discontinued. Now, as some of you who have been paying attention, taking notes and all of that, know I've been sober now for over 30 years. Okay, but Bacardi 151 was definitely my drink of choice because I was getting bang for the buck. I didn't give a shit about taste. Okay, but the reason why I was discontinued was because people were catching on fire. Rank amateurs, were flambeing. A lot of lawsuits. So they pulled the product in 2016. I didn't know it was gone, but, I heard about this and thought, okay, let's share something not political. And now back to politics. Oh, God. So Biden is going to use this Title IX to put the death nail, put a nail in the coffin in the death of female sports. Getting flustered here. But, this is what we were talking about. This seems to be his main goal in life. 50 years ago today, he says, Title IX transformed our nation, benefiting millions of women and girls. As we look ahead, I'm committed to protecting this progress and working to achieve full equality, inclusion, and dignity for all Americans. Again, democratic, liberal, far-left way of thinking. Let's satisfy the 100 at the expense of the millions. These are the elitists. They don't care about the average person. They only care about vote getters. And so they want to lock down the trans community. So they're going to do everything for the trans community. The problem is that when it comes to sports and competition like this, they've created what we always call here the exploitable situation. Self-identification, low standards for what is a transition. I would have loved it as a kid, As a shorty, I could have just identified as tall enough to ride the ride. Nobody would have a problem with that, or would they? And that's exactly exactly what we have going on here. If you allow kids to identify as tall enough to ride a ride, kids will get hurt. If you allow men to simply identify as women, you are allowing them to exploit the situation. And that's what we're going to see. You know, a decade ago, if a man slightly dressed as a woman entered a female bathroom, everybody would call the police. It didn't matter how liberal you were. He shouldn't be in there. He's up to no good. But now it's reversed. Even the most conservative person might not call the police because, hey, we're supposed to be inclusive. It doesn't work that way, folks. A blind man cannot fly a plane. I've said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it. There need to be certain restrictions, and one of them is on sports. That's just the way it is. I mean, men will take advantage of it, and it will ruin women's sports. Pure and simple. Boom. Rapinoe could cry about it all she wants from the U.S. soccer team, but that very same women's U.S. soccer team got beat by a bunch of 15-year-old boys. Okay, the proof is not anecdotal. It's overwhelming. Doesn't work. Here's another thing that doesn't work. We're going to put Kamala Harris in charge of a new disinformation board designed to protect people who want to be in the public eye from ridicule and harm. Right. Okay. So as we've seen recently, even speaking out against something, see, like what I just talked about, okay, protecting women's rights in sports by setting stringent guidelines for what is transition. You know, what is it? Like the International Swimming Committee say, hey, if you transition before 12, cool. If you transitioned after 12, you're in the open category. Okay, that's a stringent rule that allows people to compete, but with certain guidelines in place. So we're going to put Kamala in charge of the guidelines for what is harassment. It's kind of like having Epstein and Maxwell babysit your teenage daughter. Probably not a good idea. Probably going to end up fucking everyone. Right? She's useless, so I guess the best case scenario is she just sits on her hands and does nothing. So there was a smash and grab again up in Walnut Creek. And, you know, I'm not harping on the out-of-control crime that we have because I don't need to tell you about it. But this is what I found interesting. The DA of Contra Costa County, which includes Walnut Creek, has instructed her prosecutors to consider looters' needs in theft case. She also told investigators to determine whether the theft was committed for financial gain or personal need. Well, wouldn't it all be personal need? I need money, so I stole a bunch of watches and sold them, bought some crack. Do they do crack anymore? Please, interact with this video. Let's get the algorithm noticing me, okay? Say something. Tell me something. You know? Do you think that all thieves could say it was for personal need? I think they could. So we'll move into, I guess, the top story portion of this show. New era or dark day. Americans divided as they react to Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade. First of all, I am very much pro-choice. Why? Because this is America and you have the rights and the freedoms. And I think that abortion is a right and an issue of freedom. Okay, that's what I think. I would never want to participate in an abortion. It's not a choice I would make. I'd suck it up and pay the bills. But that's just me. I'm one of the good guys. You know, there's not as many of us out there as the bad guys and the middle of the road shrug guys, you know. But I understand why this was overturned. And it was overturned for something quite easy to explain. If something is not mentioned in the Constitution of the United States, it falls to the states to make the law. That's it. But on the flip side, I don't understand why California and other places can then make laws about guns when guns are expressly a federal issue. You can't have it both ways, folks. But I feel bad for the states. You know, I think this lady right here, she's 83 years old. You know, the wisdom of age. Women are going to lose their lives having illegal abortions. Only women with money will be able to travel to obtain an abortion. Yeah. And what do we have right now? This, I'm just going to throw this up so you can look at this for a second. What do we have? How does this tie into purple? You have the blue people who are upset that they can't kill babies, pure and simple. Okay, we're just going to boil this down. The Republicans, the red states, are happy that they get to take away the rights of women. Who's right? Who's right? I know where I agree, but the way they're going about it, the way that they say it, the way they react to these things is fucking ugly. And for the conservatives, because the conservatives are the ones who are going to ban abortion. Here in California, Roe versus Wade isn't going to change anything. We allow abortion here. California is going to be fine. Other blue states going to be fine. Okay? But the conservatives are going to be the ones who are going to ban it. And in fact, they already have. I mean, Texas and other states have laws that will that are going to take effect as soon as Roe versus Wade is completely gone. And they are going to outlaw abortion. But, when you're out there as a conservative celebrating Roe versus Wade, you might want to check yourself, okay? For a group that subscribes to this whole replacement theory, you just created liberals. That's what you did. You just took away young women's rights to abortion in a lot of states, and you're going to make them liberal. They're going to hate you for that one issue. If they get raped, they're going to have the baby. Who the fuck's going to vote for the person who did that? I wouldn't. You have undone all the progress that has been made against the far left. Because you have shown yourselves, Texas, to be draconian. To be okay with taking away rights. For people who say that they're red-blooded Americans, Republicans are taking away rights. That's what they're doing. What about the rights of the baby? Hey, look, until that baby's born, they have no rights as far as I'm concerned. I don't really understand why we even have that debate. I think it's a red herring. The decision by the Supreme Court is going to drive people to the left. It's going to drive people out of the center and back to the left. This decision will make flipping blue seats and blue states red almost impossible. Because the women will be too afraid to vote for Republicans because they may outlaw abortion, even, as we've seen, even in cases of rape and incest. And that's just the fact. And it won't stop abortions. It'll make abortions harder. It'll make abortions more difficult. And again, this isn't Roe versus Wade being overturned. This is the states that are going to outlaw it. As we saw on that map, there's going to be plenty of states outlawing it. In red states, you might drive women out or back to blue. Either way, no matter what happens, this punishes women, doesn't punish men. No man will be punished because of this law. I mean, they may be forced to pay child support, but what? Some vagrant rapist is going to worry about that? Come on. And after everything we've seen out of the Democrats, and now we're seeing out of the Republicans with their anti-abortion laws, it seems like 2022 is just the year of shit-hammering women, eroding women's rights. And next will probably be gay rights. Republicans are just shooting themselves in the foot. Both sides are eroding women's rights. But will the women move to the center? No, they'll just go with that group. A group that both sides are eroding women's rights, and the women will stick with them. Pretty sad. So here's another one. Wow. You talk about some weird shit here. This is in Oklahoma. A man calls 911 after he fatally shoots a carjacker. Okay, cops say, what? Okay, now he faces charges. I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to say there. But so this guy was getting carjacked. He took the gun away and shot the guy and killed him. He is now being charged with first-degree manslaughter in the heat of passion, okay, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, all right, and transferring a firearm from a felon. That's a law that's supposed to be like, you're not supposed to buy a gun off of a felon, because the felon's not supposed to even have it in the first place, so you can't buy it off of him. But that's what they're trying. We are losing our grip on common sense here, folks. They're saying, oh, the bad guy was trying to flee. Who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares, man? Somebody sticks a gun in your face, you take the gun away, you're shooting that motherfucker. Pure and simple. Transferring a firearm from a felon. He took it off the dude. This shit's not going to stick. But this just shows you how insane some of these people are. How little common sense they have. Biden administration was hoping, not lying, when it said vaccines would stop COVID spread. Yeah, in December 2021, Joe Biden claimed vaccinated individuals cannot spread it. And Fauci called it a dead end. All right, so then where's the retribution? You wanted to get all over people for talking about ivermectin or whatever the hell that's called. I'm mispronouncing it because we live in a world where you don't even want to say certain words. That's the world we live in, folks. You don't want to say certain words or they're going to demonetize you, which I'm not even monetized yet. They're going to shadow ban you, who knows? I'm trying so hard out here, folks, but you got these people lying about the vaccine and then they covered up by saying they were hoping. Well, that same thing could be said about Trump when he downplayed the virus initially. He was trying to be hopeful. He was trying not to panic everybody. Can we look at it that way? Can we just try to operate out of a middle ground on this? I don't know, whatever. Biden signs landmark gun measure, says lives will be saved. Yeah, probably not. My guess is probably not. But this thing is a Republican bill. All right? So we're going to look at what's going on here. Conservative bill, I would say, personally. Toughen background checks for youngest gun buyers. Okay. Keep firearms from more domestic violence offenders and help states place red flag laws. Okay. The red flag laws are probably going to end up being very Nazi-like at some point, but possibly not, depending on what kind of parameters are set. I mean, my part of my family is going through something like that right now, where one of the kids is being super violent towards the mom. Might get into that a little more later. But in that case, the police have been there, and they were unable to do anything at the time because it was mostly just mental abuse and locking her out of her own home and things like that. But the police had been involved. There was some form of documentation that there was a problem. If you keep it where there's a threshold that you must meet before you invoke a red flag law, and that line is drawn in the sand responsibly and with some common sense, I think it's a good idea. I think if we identify people, but on the flip side of that, you're going to have to give the guns back. Other family members may be able to claim them. You can't just simply seize guns and never give them back and just say, well, red flag. But, most of the $13 billion cost will bolster mental health programs and aid schools. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it really isn't the gun. It's the mentally disturbed kid or adult who picks up the gun and decides that murdering a classroom full of kids is a good idea. Or that he wants to inflict the pain he feels onto the rest of the world. So maybe if we can fix some of the problems up here, we could fix some of the problems with that. I don't know. So Biden's push for electric vehicles hits a huge roadblock, a new anti-slave labor law. And this one is not about my hatred of electric vehicles. Because let's just face it. If you haven't figured it out yet, I hate the idea of driving on electricity. I work with electricity. I've been working with electricity for a lot of years, man. I was a trained VCR repairman and TV repairman. And I've worked with a lot of electricity. Okay? I don't trust it. It's a fickle bitch. But why I really bring this up is this is one of those things that shows how this woke attitude ends up just putting you into this box. This is more like a cube. I don't know, maybe a sphere. I don't know. But you're in this box and you've now walled yourself in. So we want to make sure that stuff that's coming out of Zhejiang, I don't fucking care how it's pronounced. Fuck them. All right? They're using slave labor, the Uyghurs. So we pass a law saying that you must prove that if it came from Xinjiang or whatever the fuck that is, it can't be used, slave labor can't be used. Well, that's what they use there. They use forced labor. And they're one of the big mining areas. One of the main sources of products crucial in making batteries. How's this going to work out? But then again, China's siding with Russia, so maybe it's time to just leave China. You know, I always said if Trump wanted to do something big, he would have done something about marijuana. That would have made a lot of people happy. Biden's shot right now is to figure out and put us on a course to divorce ourselves from China. It's going to be a painful divorce, but let's fucking do it. Beyond the problems with forced labor, you have states now rebelling. Here in California, they want us to go electric by like 2030. Why didn't we get a vote on that? You know, that's one of the things I think that's really the big sticking point. A lot of this climate agenda, these electric vehicles, this massive investment in electric vehicles, none of it is being done with a vote. None of it is being put to the people to say, hey, is this the direction you want to go? Here in California, they're just going to foist it upon us. They're going to take away our ability to buy a gas generator. You realize when everything in the world runs on electricity and you have a blackout, you're fucked. All right? So, I wanted to split up the California news. California decides this is a great time to raise gas taxes. And they are. From 51 cents per gallon, that's what we pay here, a half a dollar per gallon, to 53.9 cents. Again, it's pennies, but what does it say? Does it say that the politicians in charge care about us? No, they don't care about us. They care about their agenda. They care about getting reelected. They care about having enough money that they could skim some off the top. That's what they care about. Sure, it's what? 2.9 cents? But you know what? Words are worth millions. And that's what we're seeing here. No effort at all to help the average Californian. Out of Biden, no effort to help the average American. No. Find the smallest percentage of people with the largest amount of money and then just placate them. And they'll keep you elected and you can keep skimming your money. He was going to send us $400. They keep saying they're going to send us money. I don't know when that's going to happen because, again, they throw in to stop inflation. You know, he wants to increase consumer demand. Not really sure how that's going to work. Here in California, the more gas people want, the more expensive it seems to get. And that's just for regular gasoline. We tax diesel at 13%. That is a pretty big tax on diesel. And how does that affect California and the rest of the country? Yeah. 40% of the container cargo in the U.S. passes through California ports, meaning that everything you buy that passes through California is influenced by the price of diesel fuel. So 40% of the stuff coming from overseas, which is a large portion of stuff, passes through California at an insanely high tax on diesel fuel. Filling up their trucks to drive to Texas or Arkansas or Utah or Colorado or Oregon, they start off by paying the highest fuel costs. It's raising costs of shit everywhere. We already know this. Oh my God. So here's two great little things in one article. Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, has now said that it's not oil companies that are responsible for the high prices. And so Biden's going to go off to Saudi Arabia to see if they can increase oil production. We've got oil here. But if we shift the production over to Saudi Arabia, then we can get carbon credits. We can say we're cleaning up the planet. We're not. Moving our pollution to another country is still pollution. If you really want me to buy into man-made climate change, then we wouldn't do things like this. We would take responsibility for our own oil production and produce it as cleanly and as safely as possible. Seems pretty simple. This one really sums it up. Look at that. Obama, Biden, bowing to the Saudis. Trump standing up to the Saudis. Okay. Make of that what you will. So Gascon, hopefully going to be recalled pretty soon. We cannot use single tragedies to make policy. Really? Because that's all the Democrats ever do. George Floyd, ring any bells? But let's look at this. This guy, who was now arrested for killing a transient in Pacoima, served 8 years of a life sentence. 8 years of a life sentence, okay? He killed a couple of other kids. Gascon refused to transfer his case from juvenile to adult court, and he serves 8 years. He was 17 when he and two co-defendants were convicted in adult court in 2012 in killing two other gang members. Okay. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for special circumstance, double murder, attempted murder, and shooting a firearm. Okay. As well as gang and gun enhancements. Well, now Prop 57 comes along, which was supposed to, help out people who had done small things and maybe were, just needed help. Okay. Needed a break, a second chance. Okay. But what he did was he instituted a ban on trying anyone again in an adult court if he or she was a minor when the crime was committed. So his whole conviction basically just set aside. And this guy was put out. A gang member who was convicted for life is roaming the streets. And now he's killed another person. And instead of taking responsibility for that, fuckwad Gascon just comes up with a bunch of excuses. He tries to say, his original co-defendant, it came out perfect for him. Oh, good. Oh, all right. We cannot use a single tragedy to make policies. One person's failure cannot lead us to doubt the potential of everyone else. How many fucking failures will it take? Because you've got dozens of failures at this point. We will not. But his closing line really shows you the elite way of thinking. We will not play politics with this or any other tragedy. We are so sorry for those who lost a loved one, and we will make sure all those involved are held accountable. You let him out of jail. He took 2 lives, and you gave him 8 years. How is that holding anybody accountable? It's not holding yourself accountable. Why can't you come out, Gascon, and say, look, I want to reform the criminal justice system. I want people who deserve a second chance to get a second chance. But I'm not going to give everybody a second chance because some people have forfeited that right. Some people have been in trouble off and on, and they've proven that they are just a criminal. No, you don't say that. You don't implement that. You're just like, let them all out because I have an armed guard. So if I have an armed guard, if I have police officers protecting me, why should I give a fuck about you? Speaking of not giving a fuck about the average person, here, another elitist scumbag, Stacey Abrams, who comes out and decides this is the new tack. Law enforcement are often paid less than a living wage, and that is wrong. We must raise pay for officers and address violent crime as we work to build communities. You're part of the defund the police. Do you care? Let's move into some funny political memes and end this bitch. GRU. I don't think I've ever featured GRU. Democrats close oil pipelines. Democrats close oil refineries. Democrats attack the fossil fuel industry. Democrats claim they can't control the price of gas. Well, there you go. Why is America not the leader in this? Why are we not just supplying Europe? Why are we not helping out Canada? It's exhausting. It's fucking exhausting. And the reason is because Biden doesn't pay for his own gas. So a couple of the bike falls from last week. Running the country is like riding a bike. Enough is enough. We must ban assault bikes. The red spoke law. They went all out on that one. Moments before the disaster. Trust me, I got this. And the bike is the U.S. economy. Yeah, unfortunately, I think we're headed for worse times. Oh, and this guy, Adam Schiff, what a piece of work. Again, we have evidence to indict Trump. How many times is this guy going to lie to people and then people are going to vote for him again? I don't understand it. I mean, I feel like the Democrats are the abusive boyfriend who, no matter what kind of abuse they pile onto their wife or girlfriend, the wife or girlfriend just keeps coming back. And so they prey on these weak-minded individuals. Democrats do that. Oh, yeah, they'll tell you all about how Democrats are college-educated and professors and intellectual superiors to the deplorables. But they're weak-minded. You could be the smartest man in the world and still be weak-minded. Look at that. Just beating the shit out of the American people. Putin's club. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as he can blame somebody else, right? Don't take responsibility for it. Don't do anything. Don't come up with some sort of plan that might encourage us and give us hope. No. Blame Putin. Okay. Nancy Pelosi recommends avoiding paying at the pump by becoming a millionaire through insider trading. Wow. Yeah. I doubt she said that, but, she's Jen Psaki-ing us. That's great. Man takes shot every time CNN says January 6th dies. I haven't watched a second of it. It's all a farce, and I doubt anything substantial is going to come out of it. And shipping companies have raised their prices because ships run on diesel, you moron. Chris Farley. Love that guy. Yeah, again, when the cost of fuel goes up, the cost of everything goes up. Hello, yes, I just stole a firearm. Now I need to complete my universal background check. How is this not Babylon B? Criminals don't follow gun laws. And, we think that we've passed this historic gun law bill. But guess what? Red flag, 19-year-old can't buy an assault weapon. 28-year-old has his guns taken away from him. He can steal guns. You can just go steal them. That's quite an easy way. You can borrow your parents' gun. There's ways around it. But again, it's the superficial nature of gun control laws. When people like Gascon won't charge criminals with using a gun, it's all superficial. I had a tie at the top of the list this week because there were two that were just great. Kavanaugh burns down his home just to get it over with. The Merriam-Webster replaces definition of woman with shrug emoji. Oh, man. And again, that's placating 100 at the expense of 1,000,000. So this is an old one. This is not something recent, but I just recently saw this. The KKK. Your skin color tells me all I need to know. Once I know your color, I know exactly what to think of you and how to treat you. Woke. Your skin color tells me all I need to know. Once I know your color, I know exactly what to think of you and how to treat you. Yeah, they're both racist. And woke is the very definition of pleasing 100 at the expense of 1,000,000. And that's what we need to step away from in this country. We need to stop looking at skin color and making all of our decisions on it. I thought we had moved past it, but apparently we haven't. But in reality, right now, the people who are doing that damage are the Democrats. There is a ginormous assault on women's rights in this country. We think right now there's only a handful of transgender athletes. It's not that big of a deal. But, at one point, people weren't as vicious as they were when it came to taking advantage of people and scamming people. smaller number, but that number grew, didn't it? All of a sudden, now we have India. We have little sweatshops set up in India that spend all day trying to scam old people over the internet. You know, it used to be the Nigerian prince would send you a letter in the mail. Then it was an email. And now it's just a concerted effort by criminal organizations to steal your money, to just pluck it right out of your bank account. That's the problem with Biden's agenda right now. If he cuts off fossil fuels and empowers transgender athletes, what are going to be the end results of that? What are going to be the end results if our climate stabilizes, or if our climate, God forbid, goes the other way, and all of a sudden it just starts getting wetter and darker? How are we going to power all these green energy things? What's going to happen when it becomes commonplace for third-rate male athletes to simply say, I'm transgender? If you don't stop stuff when it's tiny, it just gets big. That's the way it always works. But right now, I'm tiny, and I'd like to get big. Bad analogy. And I hate to just ask, I'm not one of those people, but please, if you've enjoyed any of this, if you think I'm speaking any amount of truth, please interact with this video. Like it, share it, subscribe to it, put your notifications on. Maybe if the algorithm starts picking up more middle-of-the-road people like myself, maybe we could start having politicians who care about the middle, the average American. Because believe it or not, the answers are not going to come from the two extremes we have right now. Love y'all. Copious out. Jeez.